originally. So
okay.
yeah.
Wow. And I'm Coach Kate, coming to you from Austria, from rural Austria. And today I'm so pumped. I have story number 29, and we have Sensual alignment coach Mary here. And I can't wait to dive into her story and what she's doing, because I think it's so important. And we're going to dive right in because we don't have a lot of time. It's such a great topic. And we see more and more of this, of bringing more pleasure into your life and how you can manifest magic and all these things by bringing more pleasure into your life. That sounds kind of funny, from us having more pleasure. How do we manifest all this money and blah, blah, blah. But we're going to get into that. And there's no one better to do that than Mary here. So Mary, I know Sensual alignment coach, and I want you to take us back to a little bit of your background and take us back to a time when you were kind of going through a shift, right? Maybe a time of growing pains, a time of basically what brought you to be doing what you're doing now, and sharing this so very important energy that you do, because you're changing a lot of lives, and we need to hear more of this stuff. So Mary, she's the chill out queen, the chill out queen. That's the main name.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to talk to you more about pleasure and what I do. As Kerrie said in a beautiful introduction, my name is Mary Tamil. I'm a sensual alignment coach and the chill out queen. And what I do is help women and men bring more pleasure into their lives, reconnect with their body and their inner sensual being, which I found is often the reason for so much anxiety and depression and just overall disconnection and disharmony within people. And so I have created programs, and I do one-on-one coaching around sensual alignment, which is this idea, I call it the metaphysical approach to relationships, because it's usually, it's all using the universal laws and principles of being and relationships and energy and vibration in order to have better relationships, to get what you want, to get what you desire, build the business that you want. If that's something, I end up coaching a lot of entrepreneurs around this, because it's one of the things that we everyday society and everyday life. And the problem that I address and solve is this lack of sensual energy in the world. And then it's like we don't know what to do with it. We don't know where to put it. And it kind of it discombobulates relationships and different situations. So it's really this cleaning out and this clearing out of that channel within you, and being able to present a really clear and clean sensual energy to the world, and to be able to create your life from this place. So it's really exciting, and it's very cutting edge, if I do say so myself, and it's something that the world is really in need of at this time. So I love that, you know, you're on board the pleasure train too, and you also teach this to your clients. And I think it's so needed in this space and in all spaces, honestly. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you and dive in with all the things.
Amazing. Mary, what made you, because I've seen you transform in the last 2 years, and I didn't really know you before, but just from visually at this end, something sparked in you from where you came in as a coach. And so what were you doing before, like as a coach or as a yoga teacher or all these other things that you were doing? And what in your life instigated you to find pleasure again?
Such a good question. I know you asked that. I didn't really address it the first time, but basically what happened was I was really just kind of being like in this unchosen submission, which people kind of call like fight, flight, or freeze. I think I was in a mix of all of them. where I just felt like this super deep societal pressure. I was working in corporate and I had like all the ideas that I still have now and that I talk about now and express now, but it was like they were like tormentors, like I just felt like a straight up alien all the time. And I just kind of felt like there had to be more. And, through my journey and like going through really dark times and, really like lonely times, and then finding things like yoga, which I, became a yoga teacher and meditation, and I was teaching meditation to corporate clients and teaching yoga to corporate clients. And working in corporate job myself as a paralegal in patent law, and just kind of like being like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but this is my life. Like I need to be on this path of like helping people. And I've always been really passionate about women around relationships and around sexuality, because I know how deeply misunderstood we are. And I mean, I think for me, I've always kind of been this like hyper sexualized being. Like ever since I was younger, I got like really full, like very young. I had boobs when I was young, like one of the first girls to have boobs, this type of thing. And I think it just like, it messed with me because it wasn't okay. Like in society, there were all these things around women. And I just felt like, either way I lost, like whether I was sexual, I lost. If I wasn't sexual, I lost. And it was like, there was no win-win situation. So I became really passionate about creating that for women and creating that for all people in their relationships and in their lives, where they get to feel connected to themselves, they get to feel sexy, and they also get to use this energy to help them, right? Which is so often not the narrative around women. It's like, this energy is dangerous. If you're sexy, nobody's going to want you. You're going to be a whore. Like all this stuff, which so isn't true and is actually opposite to biology and how men actually think and what men actually want. And so it's all very toxic in nature. And like when we really look at it, it just comes down to, people are brainwashing you out of your power, like very largely. And it's mainly like companies and media and like, it's really silly stuff because it's not even really important. What's really important is creating yourself and your body and your being and your relationships how you want them to be. And so that's what I address, and that's what most people aren't getting. And so I think the shift that really happened for me was like realizing how important this was and kind of taking it away from myself. Like, I was so like self-conscious about these topics before, and taking the spotlight that is away from myself and onto like the real problem was a huge shift for me, and a huge thing that opened up my business and helped me to, really actually start helping people. And yeah, like I think it was a lot of self-consciousness at first coming out with these types of things, talking about my abuse, like, and I was not like ever really deeply, deeply abused or traumatized. I was in other ways, but like sexually, but also talking about this, talking about past like toxic relationships. It all felt very like hard to do. And I think I had to go through like getting over all my shit, like talking about my shit, working with coaches, working with healers on my own stuff. And then it was like the floodgates kind of opened. And then I added on that additional pleasure, pleasure, pleasure on top of the healing. And it was like, oh, okay, now I'm in my power. Now I can continue to heal as I hold other women through this transition, as I hold other people stepping into this sensual alignment that we just so desperately, desperately need as a society, as a community. So I know I'm going on, but, and I could, trust me. But thank you for asking that, because that's such a powerful question. And I know you've had like experiences with pleasure too. I'd love to learn, how it's helped you in your business and your life. And
oh, girlfriend, we could talk for hours. Let's book
I
another.
know, right?
Hot topic. But so you felt this, you knew what you wanted to do, but it was the pleasure and the sensual alignment that really gave you the bravery to come out, or did it give you the more the power to step into it?
Yeah, I would say the power, like I've always been brave. I was always doing the thing, and it was always an edge for me to be
Yeah.
like putting myself out there in that way. But I think my messaging got really strong like when I first of all saw that it really worked with the people I was working with and the people I was able to share this idea with, even though I wasn't as vocal about it, but it was really working. And I kind of lost your question a little bit in there, but I think it's like once I started to own my sensual power and really step into that, and it's the shame piece, right? It's like the shame and the wrongness. It's like something about the way that I grew up, the way that other people grew up too, that I know it's like we can't step out, and I won't say can't because I definitely have, but it's like so hard to really be in your sensual energy without that shadow of shame and without that like
Mm.
just like kind of icky feeling. And have you ever read Existential Kink or listened to
Yes.
Existential Kink?
Oh,
That was something, yeah, that and also working with my current coach, Pamela, which she does like similar work on like how to like really turn your shadows into your best kink ever and how to like really rock that and be like, this shadow, this ickiness that I'm feeling, like you turn that into seduction, you turn that into, for me, that's what I did, turned it
yeah.
into like something I could work with that was sexy and that I could put on and be like, oh, look at this shame, baby. And that is how I really actually got out of it, is this kind of more like lightness around it and like sexiness around it.
This
Yeah.
is huge. A good friend of mine, she's also taken some of the courses with me, and she's also a sex tantra coach, and she's a big advocator of the existential kink, and she introduced me to it, and so she's deep dived into all her courses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk a lot about turning that unwanted into pleasure. And the one thing she says is evidence of having is evidence of wanting. What you have in your life, some part of you wants it in some kinky way.
Yes.
And we won't get into existential kink here, but last week I remember I was sick on the couch with COVID, and my friend, she says, Kerrie, just find the kink on the couch. Just find the kink on the, and it's so typical for her to say that and feeling like caca. But I'll tell you, in this, I was really feeling down in the dump, just felt really bad. But I did have these pleasure calls, this group, this this course I'm taking, all about what you're teaching. So I had it running in the background as I'm lying there, and for those moments, it just pulls you out of like whatever you're in, right? It just has its own power to pull.
It
from
does.
whatever,
Yes.
like sick is another
Exactly.
option, but it's this is big, and I want to go more into this about turning what we have in our life into having the power to turn it into turn on. Tell us more about that, and how do you do that?
Oh, I'd love to. Well, as you were speaking about that, I was like just thinking about the women in my Sensual Alignment group program right now, which we are almost a month in, a little under a month in. And it's so amazing to watch the transformation already with this, because this is what we're working on. And the thing I've noticed coaching a group of women on this at once, which is this is the first longer container that I've had shorter ones, but seeing the transformation in this way is like they're starting to notice and they're starting to pick up on this and be really conscious that they have a choice. And one of those choices is the default, socially acceptable, just like obvious kind of choice. And it's also the one that doesn't feel as good. And it's also the one that doesn't really bring happiness. It doesn't bring pleasure. And it's like, that's so random that it would be, or is it, right? It seems random, or it seems like a coincidence, but it's really not. This has like been trained women have been trained to be like this, like in this kind of victimization, right? Of like, woe is me. And it happens in really sneaky ways, especially in relationships, a kind of powerlessness in their lives, maybe if they have like, if they're like sharing custody, or if they're going through a breakup, right? Especially if they're going through a breakup where like it wasn't their choice. I see this in my those moments are the most transformational when you get this one piece, which I teach my clients how to do really easy. And it is really easy. It's a simple choice to make, but it's like our patterning, we're so conditioned to just go into default victimization that it takes time and it takes retraining and it takes like conscious rewiring of the subconscious and of the body even to go into a state of pleasure instead, to be in okayness, to be in like nothingness, even like that is better than, and I don't mean nothingness depression like disassociation, I mean like even like boredom, even just learning to be bored with yourself, learning how to touch yourself or learning how to give yourself massage, like when, and if that's the best case scenario versus you going into spiral woe is me, it's like if you choose that and when you choose that, your life will radically change forever and ever and ever. And it sounds really easy. I mean, even just like getting yourself a cup of tea with honey, or like, watching a show or something like this. I would even, be a proponent of like Netflix in bed and order takeout versus like going into this, just really negative, really unfortunate kind of thing that women tend to do. And this is where I catch women in, because they're like typically in therapy, they're typically trying really hard to not be in this place, but just can't seem to kick the addiction of being in this place. And that's where I find most of my clients, because I'm like, oh, you've tried everything, have you? Okay, well, let's try something new that has nothing to do with masculine patriarchy bullshit around, what you should be doing. And let's rest instead. Let's work on your mindset instead. Let's work on your pleasure instead and the blocks that come to that instead. And that is what changes everything for them. One of my clients like doubled the income in her business, in her online sales, like since starting to work with me. And she has much bigger goals in mind, and like she's going to get there, but it's like just to see the wheels starting to turn and just to see it already happening is so cool. And it makes me like, reminds me that like it's not about me, it's about all of us, it's about all of us coming together. And also you get to start with yourself, and you get to start with your own pleasure and all of that. So I'm so glad that you're at this. Like I'm glad that I get to get the lowdown from like what you're doing in your life, because I know you've been like deep in the pleasure play. And I love that you have these like pleasure calls on the couch when you're not feeling good. Like imagine if every woman had that, Kerrie. Imagine all the time.
Now, why do you think when you're teaching your clients, you mentioned the one that doubled her income, is it because when she's practicing giving herself pleasure, and we're not just talking masturbation, we're talking about
right,
massage, we're talking about bubble baths and all that. Is it because, Mary, you're saying to yourself, I'm worthy of this? Like you're saying, okay, now I can receive this. When you receive your own love, you can now receive more abundance. Is that?
Yeah, that's 100% it. I mean, the metaphysical approach to relationships, the reason Sensual Alignment is a metaphysical approach to relationships, because in the metaphysical world, everything is energy and everything is vibration. And so your result, all of your external reality is a result of your energy and how you feel, essentially, and what frequency you're vibrating at, in all the different ways with all the different things. You could be vibing high in finances and vibing super low in love and like all the things, right? But we want to bring you to this like general higher vibe where pleasure is getting wired into your nervous system, into your body, into your mind. And it really is you. It's like most children are in pleasure. I think we can agree if nothing traumatizing has happened to them. And that is you. Like if nothing happened to you, you would still be like eating fruit and mangoes on the beach or, in the mountains, picking herbs or whatever. Like this is just kind of our natural having sex, right? Like this is our natural way of being. And so when we try to take that away from ourselves, it's like, of course, this like dysmorphia is going to happen. And so it's just a rewiring, it's just a coming home and like reshedding of the layers. So what's really happening? There are a few things that's happening. First of all, your point of attraction is going in a completely different direction, right? I'm going to draw myself a bath is a completely different vibration than why isn't he texting me back, right? And you can be in either one of those, and it's one of them is more addicting than the other, but they're both choices to be in. And also, after you do that, the changes here, like you can be in that fuck he hasn't texted me energy and draw yourself a bath, that's just the 1% more. I'm going to journal about how fucking angry I am. That's just the 1% more that over time makes that change where you turn around and you're like, oh my God, like my business just doubled overnight. It's that subconscious like rewiring of pleasure that is true, that is really you, that over time, metaphysically speaking, like you just can't help but attract these things to you. So like with this client of mine who doubled her income, she didn't even like tell me. She was like, we were focusing on other things. And then she just casually was like, oh yeah, I sold like twice as many copies this year of my online journal. Like I was like, holy, casually my income. Like, well, this is what we get to focus on and expand and expand. It's so funny because that's how it happens, because like she didn't even realize, because she's so focused on her pleasure, she's so focused on the things we're working on, and then that just comes up underneath it,
She
because
is
the reality is
vibrating it, and probably doesn't feel like she's missing anything, so it's there.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. We're like on the same frequency. Like you've already done the work. We've already done the work. You've already put the thing out there. You already have it in you. It's just a matter of like being true to you and standing in it. I've always been this way. I just couldn't stand in it before because my nervous system was not regulated in pleasure. And I was like, falling apart at the seams when I try to speak to people about this stuff before. But now it's a whole different thing. And this is over a really short period of time. It was just 1% every single day, every single hour. So,
and you're giving permission
to
so many women, not just women, but to do the same. And so it's powerful. Just you doing it in your life is rippling. It's like that stone in the river or water or lake or whatever. It's making a big ripple just by.
I think I have the name Mary, so I've always associated myself with like Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and kind of this like martyr type figure. And then I'm like, well, what if I'm not a martyr, but it's actually like I'm crowning myself at the same time as I feel like I'm burning myself, right? Because we have this thing of like, oh, when we use our witchy powers, when we use our pleasure to manifest, we're going to get burned because that's what has happened in the past, or we're going to get, cast down or cast out of society like Mary Magdalene, like the other witches. And then it's like, well, let me just show up and try. I put myself out there and I don't always know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just feeling it out. And I'm like, this feels like something, it feels like an edge. It feels like somewhere I get to go, like no one's ever gone out here before. That's why it's scary. It's not actually, but the fact that I have access to even do that in my mind means like, I get to go do it. The fact that I'm even the one standing on the edge saying, should I jump, is kind of like, yeah, you should jump if you're even asking the question.
Yeah, I love it. Mary, I want to touch on one last thing before we go here. Why is it so important for us to explain the concept of bragging? And because I know you encourage that a lot. We're being encouraged to do it every day in our course. The word bragging has a bad rap. And why is it so important for us, not just women, but to use bragging, to speak it out, even to other people? Why is it so powerful? Because I know it's powerful because I've been doing it, but you tell us.
Oh, I love this question. And I just met up with one of my clients yesterday for a little hike, and we were talking about this. And I think the main thing comes down to, I'll say the same thing that I said to her. Like, if you were a fly on the wall in an interview with, the next VP of sales, right? Like probably a middle-aged white guy or whatever, maybe not dissing the middle-aged white men here. I love you. And if you were, what would he be saying to get that job? Like, he would only speak to his brags, and it wouldn't be calling it brags, it would be calling it experience. So I think that the important part of bragging, and even why we use that term, is like a deep reclamation. When you hear about, oh, somebody was bragging, if you overheard in a supermarket, oh, this person was bragging, you'd immediately think it was a woman. You'd immediately think if somebody was bragging in a negative connotation. And I know I'm going into a lot of different things here, but my mind's just like on hyper speed around this, because I was watching this movie. If you've seen King Richard, there's this moment where he's driving Serena and Venus Williams, his daughters, home from practice or home from a game tournament, and they won, and they're bragging in the car. And he stops and they go into the store, and he tries to leave without them. He's like, my daughters aren't going to be braggers. And, I just sat there watching the movie like, this would not happen if these were his sons. I just I fail to believe that he would have the same attitude. And that's not dissing, Will Smith's character or anything like this, but it's like, there is this real thing around women speaking about and speaking to what they've done and what they're capable of. And it's the deep witch wound. It's the fear around being cast down and being thought of as like a bragger or somebody who, talks themselves up. Like, oh no, that's not cool. You have to be picked. You have to be told that you did a good job to feel good or to brag about yourself. That's the only way you'll get that feeling. And it's like, no. First of all, honey, that's not how you're going to get what you want to get in the world. And I say this with so much love because I used to be there too. I could not talk about myself for shit. And if I did, I was usually complaining. So it's so important how to learn how to do this and rewire your mind for bragging is good. Bragging brings me more, bragging, celebrating myself. Celebrating myself. Oh my gosh, like I just want more and more and more. And that's that metaphysical thing and rewiring that happens. That's just like things and people and situations that are higher in alignment for you come when you are in deep celebration around yourself. That is your truth, right? We are all deeply celebrated and loved, and we know this, but also we forget, and we tend to spend time ragging on ourselves instead of bragging on ourselves. And so that's something we get to radically shift. I know this with coaching. It's like when you have someone way over here, right, in their mindset, you want to flip them way over here if possible, and if safe, of course. Sometimes it's not safe to bring people that quickly, but a lot of times we're working in the polarities where if someone is super low on themselves, well, we want to celebrate you, right? And that's oftentimes what women are taught to do, is be really low on themselves. So we want to bring in the epic celebration. Yes.
Bragging, yes, huge. And we can go on just about that topic. So I'm glad you went into that. I'm so sorry. We gotta go. And I'm bragging that I have had you on this story show today, adventure. And you know how we're going to kick it. You know how we're going to finish? My good friend, she makes these cards called Wild Heart Intention.
Those are beautiful.
And they're beautiful. And I'm going to pick one for the two of us for today, and for all you gorgeous women out there. Well, anyone listening. And anyone listening, if you have questions for Mary, drop it in the chat. Mary, you're going to drop in the chat too. You have a dance event coming up, a hot to trot thing.
I do. My
So you
Smoking
can-
Hot Life 420 Smoking Hot Life party. We're coming together, pussy activation, manifestation. I'm also going to share some special opportunities to be more in my space and work with me. So come, come, come. It's going to be so fun. And yes, I will drop the link in the chat here. Thank you for reminding me. I totally did not remember to say
I'm going to pick our message of the day, and it's the one, here it is. I am ready to surrender to the wisdom of pleasure. Pleasure is what fuels our ability to create and regenerate and stay on the heartbeat of why we started this crazy adventure. There you go. She has a little artwork with it as well. So,
and you didn't pick that beforehand. Pick that now. You didn't pick that beforehand. You just picked that right now.
No, I just picked it right now. Picked it right now. A little bit of pleasure and adventure. No, I just picked it. I've never actually read that one. Mary, I think I want to say Mare Bear. Mary.
You can call me Mare Bear. I love it.
Mare Bear and Care Bear is coming to you here.
Yes, Mare Bear and Care
Thank
Bear.
you. Thank you for your time and energy and space. You're amazing. And look forward to you in the chat. You can drop all your stuff in the chat. Anybody else, please drop a message, anything that's landed for you here, because we're definitely going to come back on and do something again. Part 2. Okay.
Thank you, Kerrie, so much for having me. Thank you, and you're welcome for being here. I had so much fun. Much blessings to everyone.
Mwah. Bye, sister. Bye, everybody.